Good evening and welcome to this month's Whiskey Me Live tasting for the month of February 2024. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. I hope you're looking forward to another fantastic live tasting. We have one new brand and one return brand to taste tonight. Both of them fantastic in their own right. And super excited to hear what you have to say about them, what you think about them. And I'm excited to give you my opinions as well. So we are going to be joined by Sam Simmons from Atom Brands, which own and Whiskey, which is the Seaweed and Aeons and Digging and Fire, which you've all, the 10-year-old, which you've all, some of you have received this month. And then we're going to join by Cian Keelty from Sailor's Home to talk about the journey. So we're going to start with our Scotch whiskey as normal, and Sam, I'm going to bring it shortly, and then in around about 15 minutes, we'll move on to Cian, and we'll be talking about Sailor's Home Irish whiskey. So fill your glass up, get ready. I've already got my my Scotch whiskey in my glass, and I'm now going to introduce Sam Simmons. Hey, Sam.
Live from what looks like a hotel in Norway. Hey, how are you?
We just had a last minute kind of like scenery panic. Sam's at his in-laws' house in Norway, which, I mean, it's such a Norwegian setting you've got going on there. I don't know, like
there's plenty of snow outside. I tried to get a window shot, but you ridiculed the blinds, so I'll leave it.
Couldn't you have gone outside in the snow? I mean, it's only like 20 minutes. Come on, man. So Sam is an old friend. You, many moons ago, used to be fantastic global ambassador for Balvenie, and which is where we first met, and has since, for some time, I mean, what has it been, like 5 years now, maybe, been at Atom Brands, something like that?
2018, yep, so we're on our 6th now, yeah.
6, yeah. There's a bit of COVID in the middle of that, which obviously is like a temporary war. And I mean, it's just, so Atom Brands might not be something that all of our members are familiar with, but you'll be familiar with the brands. This is the thing. So we've featured that boutique whiskey company in the past, and of course, you're a sister company of Master of Malt as well, which is a great friend of ours, a fantastic online whiskey retailer. What else has Atom Brands got going? Does Master of Malt still do its own independent bottlings outside of?
Yeah, so it's sort of, the company's Atom Supplies, and it's Master Malt's the online retail and an independent bottler called Master Malt, but I'm responsible for that too as a part of Atom Brands. Maverick Drinks is the importer, the craft importer of spirits in the UK, Maverick Drinks. And then Atom Brands is like the own label, Taste the Difference range, where we take whiskeys and gins and rums from suppliers and partners and try to bottle it up in cool ways that end up, yes, on Master of Malt as labs products like this one initially started as boutique, and also the rums, the boutique rums and all the gins and everything else we do.
Yeah. And bottle up in cool ways, I think, is probably, it's like your mission statement, basically, isn't it? Because everything you guys do, it's kind of pushing the boundaries, I feel, of what has previously been acceptable within the marketing, particularly of single malt Scotch whiskey. And now is acceptable, thanks to the likes of what you guys are up to,
Well, I won't take too much credit there. I do think I'm lucky to sort of fill the shoes of Ben Ellefson, who's one of the founders of Master of Malt and Maverick and Atom Brands, that part of the business, because they were crazy. And I was a fan from a distance. Before I worked for Balvenie, I had a website called Dr. Whiskey, and I was working the Whiskey Exchange with Sukhinder Singh. And I really admired what they were doing as I got to know Master of Malt. It was just cool. It was a wicked new tone of voice. Yeah, they were trying new shit. They were ruffling feathers. They had a personality. And I think we've taken that mantle well. We definitely rub up against the compliance teams pretty regularly. They have a dartboard with my face on it. So it's, yeah. But that's exactly how it should be. I think the category needs it, and then we're very lucky to be able to iterate and try new shit, put it onto Master of Malt, and see if it goes. And that's a real luxury that few other companies have. So I think that's where some of the ideas we have, we can think of them over our Cheerios in the morning and have them live by the next Friday.
Yeah, that's a great shout. You're not quite end-to-end because you're not making, although you are making some products, I suppose, but not distillery-wise kind of thing, like full-on whiskey distillery.
No, not in
But
whiskey, but in gin. Yeah, you're right.
but nevertheless, you've more or less got that sort of, you've got a test bed. You can roll stuff out to customers, see what works, see what sticks with, see what doesn't, get feedback, and at the same time be developing brands at the other end of it, and to kind of tailor for whatever you see the requirements as. It's a pretty cool setup to be involved in, I think, and also like some really great liquids too that I've tasted over the years.
Nice, thanks. Well, I know you guys featured the Space Side, the boutique core whiskey 12-year-old, and yeah, that's something we're really proud of. And Darkness we have, and all the whiskeys we try, they're exported around the world, but we these days we iterate them, or we test them on master malt first, and that's the Adam Labs concept, where we just see if it sticks and make more.
I love that internally it's called Mom. That's cool.
Well, the funniest was a colleague of mine used to pronounce it slightly different than mom. They'd say mom. And that really threw me off. I know it's the same. I know the same 3 letters, but it just, you know what I mean? It felt stranger.
I just love that. It's like, well, we've got to see how it goes with Mom.
Yeah.
Got to run this one by Mom. Very good. But yeah, I mean, like, case in point, I mean, this kind of packaging, you just would never have seen it 10 years ago, I don't think. And certainly in 20 years ago, you would have been just laughed out of the playing field. It's crazy.
I think you think of, our product like bathtub gin. I think it's similar in that category. Totally groundbreaking packaging, pain in the ass to put together, but we still do it by hand. Boutique whiskey. I mean, think of all the distillers and friends of ours, Thompson Brothers and a Whiskey Sponge full of illustrated labels. I think when Boutique came out, it was peerless. And so it's good to just push that envelope a bit. And this is exactly where this label came from. It came from the love of saying curse words in front of our parents and, Cards Against Humanity. To be with your in-laws and be able to say pussy liquor is a real thrill. I'm just kidding. No, that's not where the label came from. That's not where the label came from.
Yeah. Where did that whole and think? I was it kind of hip hop? Was that its originating thing, or was it something else?
My belief is that it originated with a Dutch design company who was commissioned to do a design that was playing with. This really plays into why we used it, because we're not allowed to name the source of the whiskey. Similarly, if you're to use Aerosmith, or in this case, the Beatles, that's a trademarked name that you need to be licensed to be able to use. But if you want to make a t-shirt that says John and Paul and George and Ringo, everyone knows who those 4 characters are. You're basically making a Beatles shirt below the radar. And that's we wanted to play with that idea. I have a band called Barley Stills Mash and Ton. We've used
Yeah.
You remember? Yeah, that's right. Sorry, up in Space Side.
Seen you live a couple of times. Yeah.
So, and that logo was similar.
Is the band still going or not?
We're up for gigs. Let us know. Barley Stills Mash and Ton, the whiskey band. Kat, the thing that makes us legitimate, the singer, she's on her 2nd child now, so that makes it a little more challenging. But
you guys are very good, I must say, and what a brilliant name, Barley Stills Mash and Ton. It's just
for the young kids, it's a play on Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah, I can vouch for you. You're very good. And so it's you. It's Nick Morgan. Who else is?
Rob Allenson,
yes.
former editor of Whiskey Magazine, now a school teacher, and Simon Roser, Simply Whiskey, and Kat Spencer, who used to be Master Malt, one of the founders of the Boutique brand, with her friend Emily Chappell, who's still the artist. She used to work at Drambuie, I think, as well. Monkey Shoulder, Kat Spencer. Yeah, so it's a whiskey family. It was an excuse to play music every time we were at one of those festivals around the world. That's why we set it up. We were going to be there anyway, so we thought it was a cool thing to do.
Well, it is cool, and I want to see you live again for sure. I'm going to get on your speed tickets page and start, booking out whatever seats I can get. So going back to the whiskey. So it's an Islay single malt, and so initially when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's cool. It's the tasting notes. And then it took me a while. I was like, no, it's not the tasting notes. It's peat, right? It's actually peat. Yeah.
So look, this is the first of these we came up with. So we've since realized it may have been wiser to do tasting notes, But when we first came up with the idea, it was let's play on that subversive thing. Let's use a brand name without being able to say it. Let's say Islay. How do you say the Beatles without saying the Beatles? You do it like that Dutch design company did for 2K Gingham. Full credit to them. But we stole that concept and made it. What could we describe? We decided to make it peat. So seaweed, decomposing organic matter, time, eons, and then dig it from the earth. If you've been to Islay, you know the process. You see them by the side of the road drying, and then burn it, and then fire. So seaweed, eons, digging of fire is where it came from, and it was quite evocative. And so we tried this. Launched the first time we tested was just on Master of Malt, and I think we were at like 1,000 bottles a week at the beginning there, and that was COVID time, so things were a bit different, of course. But we tested something during that period. And it did really, really well. So now we've rolled it out around the world, but it's one of those. It was the first example really of labs really succeeding in whiskey experimentation. We tried it on Mom; it went really well. There was a good response, and now there's too many seaweeds. I can't even keep track of them. If you Google seaweed whiskey, there's plenty.
There's loads, yeah, for sure. So I guess the idea of it is it's sort of quintessentially Islay whiskey, right? It's supposed to epitomize all of the characteristics we expect to find.
Yeah, I mean, that my primary objective as a blender or whiskey designer, because we don't distill, but is always to make something that is primarily drinkable. So I'm not trying to make something that's like what makes you want to have one drink. It's something you want to throw the cork away and be with friends and share. And that makes you say, dude, you got to try this. And to be that staple on someone's shelf. That's always been my ambition, whether it's Johnny Walker Black or Lagavulin 16 or Balvenie Doublewood. Those whiskeys are all they're benchmarks, they're pillars of this industry. And every good bar, whether it's a bars like yours or a home bar, has these staples, because when you're in a certain mood, you want to reach for peat. So it's trying to be the quintessential South Shore style of Islay, with a bit of iodine, a bit of medicinal notes, a bit of dried fruit. So there's 25% sherry casks, that salinity, that sort of chlorine character, and that's the objective, and 40% as well.
So there you go, the clue there, everyone. If you did tune in for a clue as to the distillery, he did say South Shore style. Now, of course, it might not mean it's a South Shore Islay distillery. Everyone's getting Google Maps up now to try to remind themselves which distillery is on the bottom side. There's not that many. So there you go. I don't imagine we're going to get any more clues as good as that for which distillery it's from. I have my own ideas, but I won't be divulging. I was going to say, we still have, like, we find with our members, there's still, I don't know, it's hard to put a percentage on it, but there's still a chunk, I'd say maybe 10%, who do not like peated whiskey. And every time we send one out, we get feedback. Let's just call it that. What do you have any advice for someone who is maybe like a whiskey lover, but they just find that kind of smokiness a bit of a challenge? Or do you think for some people it's just kind of like genetically impossible for them to really appreciate or enjoy it?
I think we're very lucky in a category of spirits generally, but in mature barley-based spirits like single malt Scotch or just whiskey from around the world, that there's so much being produced and so much of very high quality. You don't have to like everything. Mm. And this is a polarizing flavor. My wife I'm in Norway, and my in-laws, like I said, my wife grew up on sweets that are like salty licorice. That's a polarizing sweet. And I think it's a similar thing. It's love it or hate it. And those who love it, they will make pilgrimages to Islay and sacrifice their jobs or the little bit of free time, free money free money they have in a given year to make that pilgrimage. It's almost a religious thing for those. And for the rest, it's like, I don't understand why you're dreaming. And if you look up, I think even on Whiskey Me, there's some reviews already from you doing this, but definitely on Master of Malt, you look at the reviews and some people say, Germaline, horrible. Why would you put this in your body? Which I get it, man. But as far as peaty whiskey go, those who love it, absolutely love it. So there's something to that, whether it's death metal or salty licorice, something that polarizes. It's better to have a strong feeling than indifference, I feel.
It is interesting because I think for a long time I've always considered peated whiskies as just part of the whiskey category, and I don't really necessarily even notice that much if I flip between a peated and a non-peated on a tasting. and yet in a way they are kind of different spirits. You know, when you get a properly peated whiskey like this, it's really not a lot like a kind of elegant, sort of fruity, slightly sherry Speyside. You know?
No, and that's and it's important to say that too. You're right, because it's also not for every mood. Even those who like it, and I do like peaty whiskey, I very rarely reach for it because I am a fortunate, bearded, bald white man who is happily married and has lovely children. I'm not a homicide detective who faces death every day. And if you read Ian Rankin, his detectives always reach for Laphroaig, and so would I if I dealt with homicide on a daily basis. But if you've had a shit day or something's wrong, for me, sometimes you want a bit of that peaty punishment. And I get it, it's not for everyone, but it's not for every mood either. You know, you organize your bars often by flavor, and I think that's wise because it's not just flavor; it's occasion.
Yeah,
there's so much more
tied together in a way, flavor and occasion. Yeah, and lightness and heaviness and all that kind of thing. Yeah, another sort of fictional character who likes to drink Laphroaig, and obviously there are other Islay smoky whiskies, is Ben Hope from the Scott Mariani series, and he's kind of like this ex-SAS kind of mentally rattled, unhinged character, and his go-to is Laphroaig, because there's a sort of slight, I think, certainly from a novelist's point of view, there's an almost like masochistic thing about peaty whiskey, right?
It's used like that, absolutely, and it's I mean, to its fault too, because now we see it's very associated with masculinity, but it's not necessarily that, because everyone can have that urge, and I think but that is like how it is used literally in literature. I think you're right.
Yeah, right. I'm going to throw up some tasting notes just as we kind of taste. So quite like fruity, smoky taste, sweetness coming through. Nice than 90% dark chocolate, for sure. There's some fruit in there for sure as well. I mean, this is not just full-on smoke bomb, hey? Like, it's really got a nice fruitiness to it. Did you say
I really love
it goes into sherry cask as well? Yeah?
Some does, and we choose the refill barrels and refill hoggies specifically for certain flavors because we have other lines that we can use some of this inventory for. So the ones that end up here, I'm really happy to have read. Yeah. Is the fruit something? Yeah, I think there is a fruitiness, and we're trying to amp that up with the cask selection. But the sherry is doing that too. So plums, panicking skunker, plums, raisins, that sort of prune, dried fruit often comes from barrels that used to hold sherry. So we use those for 25% of the mix.
Sweet, smoke, fruity, saline. I mean, it's kind of ticking all the kind of things we would expect to get from Islay whiskey, I think. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, I love it. And I mean, it's great value for money. I mean, I think under £40 a bottle, isn't it? Which is, in this sort of current climate of whiskey, is pretty good for a whiskey like this, I think.
That's worth saying too, is how much longer will the suppliers allow it to happen? That is what the whiskey world is in a transition period, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of transitions, let's transition over to Cian from. So I'm good at this segue thing. Let's transition to Cian and bring in Say This Home, which is, I mean, Cian, I've got to apologise because hello and welcome back. I've got to apologise because we've just tasted. We've done the sort of cardinal sin of tasting. You always do the smoky, sort of heavy whiskey last. And you do the lighter, more elegant, softer whiskey, such as, I don't know, a beautiful rum cask finished Irish whiskey, such as the Journey, first.
No, don't worry. Listen, if it's any consolation, I was loving listening to the conversation. I was kind of saying, keep on going. I'm happy enough here, you know.
Well, I'm happy too as well. Thanks, Sam. And do stick around. We'll taste this. So welcome back. So we were trying to date when you were last on, and it was right when we first started the World Whiskey subscription, which was, I think, literally the month after Dragon's Den aired. It's about 3 years ago, and you were the second ever World Whiskey we did. The first one was Bullet Rye, I think, and then the second was we did the Horizon. Or was it Horizon?
So I think. I'm not sure if we did Horizon or Haven. I know
Haven. Haven's the single, the malt one, right?
The single pot still, the Irish pot still.
Yeah. That was the one we did, yeah. Because I remember I did a tasting with you over lockdown, and got to try everything, and loved the brand, loved what you were talking about and everything. It was fantastic. And then we launched this World Whiskey and managed to pull together getting you on board very early on. So if anyone wants to go back and watch that video, it is still hosted there on YouTube. And you can see all of us looking 6 years younger 3 years ago.
You're not wrong, seriously. I mean, I'm talking about me, not you.
So anyway, how's things been? Maybe first of all, actually, you should just give a sort of intro into the brand again, because although everyone who's watching will have seen the kind of information that we've disseminated about what you're doing, and some of them indeed will have been around since we last tasted Sailor's Home, it might be worth for the new people to the brand a little intro.
Yeah, cool. So you're right. So we launched right at the end of 2020. So when we spoke first in 2021, we were right after launching, right? And we looked at the whiskey market from around 2012 onwards, and we said, okay, we want to do something where we want to bring great whiskies from Ireland, but innovative great whiskies from Ireland, because we thought a lot of the players in Irish whiskey were doing not so much doing similar things, but telling a similar story. So we wanted to do something different. So our whole thing since we started is really for the audience of Whiskey Me. It's people who are interested in kind of finding something interesting or different in the world of whiskey. So to do that, we approached Dr. Jack O'Shea. So Jack is kind of a legend in Irish whiskey making circles. And if you remember, Tristan, we had Jack on last time, and he's a lovely guy. Yeah, he's like 75 or so. He started distilling in 1979. He's commissioned 6 different distilleries around the country and so on. And he loved the idea of putting his name to great whiskies from Ireland. And we set out and we said, okay, we want 4 things in every whiskey we produce. So the first is that they're utterly distinctive. So our journey, the one that we're about to taste, is completely different to Haven, which is the single pot still that you guys had in Black Rock for a long time, which completely different to Storm Chaser, which is a single malt, completely different to our 10-year-olds, which are finished in different rum casks and so on. The second thing was we said they had to be delicious, right? So, and the third thing is related, which they had to be innovative, right? So we'll talk about Journey in a little bit, but there's no Irish whiskey made like it. Haven, we added oats to the mash bill. And I know, Sam, you were talking about, malted barley and single malt and how wonderful it is. And it is. I mean, the lovely thing about Irish single pot still is typically the mash blend the mash bill is a mix of malted and unmalted barley. And then what Jack said is, let's add oats and it'll add mouthfeel. And then we aged that spirit for 4.5-5 years in bourbon and in Oloroso sherry. So you get this amazing, never-ending kind of taste profile. So, in each case, it was about being innovative, as I said, but in each case being delicious. So we went over and over and over and over again until we got really delicious products. And it's been going well, Tristan. So like when we spoke, it was 2021 and COVID was just letting us all go. So we finished 2021 in 5 markets. We finished 2022 in 16, and we're now in 22 different countries or different markets. We're just getting started in the US. We expect to just get started pretty soon now in India and in China. So it's going well, and the reaction to, look, I'm hoping I'm not setting us up for a fall, but the reaction from Journey, the reaction from Sailor's Home tends to be really, really positive,
Mm. And lots of new products as well, because when we last spoke, I think there were only 3, and there were rumors about new stuff, and then from what you just mentioned there, and in the emails we've exchanged recently, I gather there's quite a few new bits and pieces and some really interesting stuff that I've never heard of before in Irish whiskey.
Yeah, so we have 5 expressions, kind of 3 core, right? So Journey, Haven, and Storm Chaser, right? And say Storm Chaser, our single malt, is is really unusual too, because it's the first time in the world that Madeira was brought together as a cask finish with craft Irish stout. And that's why we named it Storm Chaser, because it's a little bit dangerous. Like, why are these two kind of coming together? But that's the beauty of working with
So
Jack.
it's a blend of stout cask matured and Madeira cask together.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's funny, you know, for taste profiles that sound like they might fight, they actually complement each other really nicely, because you get like kind of espresso and dark chocolate meets toffee and fig, you know. And then we've got two different 10-year-olds, Horizon and Caravel. And Caravel is the one that I know you were curious about in a Martinique rum agricole cask. But we've got 4 expressions coming out this year. Another 10-year-old, which is called Trade Winds, which is in a spiced Caribbean rum cask. So which originally began life as a sherry cask. So the flavor notes are outstanding. And then we've got 3 different single malts coming on stream. An 8-year-old malt that has spent 5 years in a Jamaican rum cask, and then 2 different 21-year-old expressions. One uniquely in bourbon over the 21 years, so it'll be a single cask strength offering called Origin, and then its sister we're calling Voyager, because it spent the last 3 years in cognac. So it's so you know, like I said, it's going really well, and we're delighted with the reaction to Setter's Home kind of as a proposition. That idea of kind of bringing great whiskies and new whiskies from Ireland, and then delighted with the reaction around each of the expressions, because they're all so completely different, you know.
And what does the prospect look like for Irish whiskey at the moment as a category? Has that evolved over the last few years?
Let me get a graph.
Exactly. So everyone knows Irish whiskey has been growing like a train for kind of year on year. What's really interesting within that, though, is historically the proportion of super premium or ultra premium that came from Ireland was really low, because around the world most people know Irish as Jameson or as you know, and look, Jameson and Irish Distillers did an amazing job in growing Irish around the world. But thankfully, what we find is there's more and more interest in super premium and ultra premium from Ireland. So we are seeing, you know, kind of 30-40% growth in that category on average, year on year. And as a result, we're growing kind of hand over fist in the markets that we're in, and in new markets where we're launching. So Irish is still growing. It's still appealing. And then, as I said, there's this kind of curiosity around new and interesting products from Ireland. You know?
Nice. So,
and actually, so I was just going to say the proof's in the pudding. Like, the proof is kind of what everyone on this podcast actually thinks. Like, I was reading some of the comments, and they were like, I don't know much about Irish, and I've never tasted Irish before, and really curious and so on. So the proof is what people say, you know.
Yeah, well, they're all saying pretty nice things, I think. I'm going to start putting some of them up, actually, so we can look at them. Do you want to maybe just speak more specifically about Journey for a few minutes, and then we can talk a little bit about what it smells and tastes like and all that kind of stuff?
So we want the Journey to be under 40 pounds. And we, right at the outset, when we were working with Jack, we said we want this to be, you know, your new go-to in Irish. So if you're going for a blend, then we want this to be really significantly different and better than most of what was out there. So we started with the grain, actually, and we looked at grain first in virgin casks, and then we recast it into bourbon. And that's kind of unusual in its own right, because grain is normally the poor relation. And then with the malt element, we loved where we got to with that. So we toyed with launching it as a single grain because we thought it was that good. And then we took bourbon that was aged in bourbon for about 4 years, and we finished that in Jamaican rum. So we don't talk about it as a rum finished whiskey. But what you get from the Jamaican rum is that it's really funky rum, and you get really, really sweet, dark sugar, kind of summer fruits, kind of pineapple, banana notes coming across on the taste of the whiskey. And the moment we tasted it, we said, "That's it. It's done. Right? That's what we want." And this whiskey is kind of unusual because whether you're, what we've found so far is whether you're a whiskey aficionado or new to whiskey, whether you're kind of male or female, people really, really, really enjoy this whiskey, and it's won awards all over the place.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as I've just shown you all the comments there, there's some really, really nice stuff coming through. What I love about it is it's obviously an Irish whiskey. There's something about it that is undeniably Irish, but that rum cask is definitely a presence in it all. And some of the tasting notes come through, like tropical coconut. I mean, it's not overtly in that way. It's not like, oh wow, cool, it's like a kind of tropical cocktail kind of thing. But there's just these little hints on the finish, especially. And then a few people are mentioning rye. I don't know whether it's like one person's mentioning it and everyone's like, yeah, it's right. For me, I don't particularly get rye on the nose on it. However, it has a really distinct pepperiness to the finish, which is something I would associate with rye whiskey, which is weird and cool and interesting and actually quite nice.
I think everything you're saying is weird and cool and interesting. Well, I'd just say, I mean, the kind of blending that you're doing is rife for being weird and wonderful and cool and interesting. It's such a great idea. I just love it.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I have to say that's the beauty of working with Jack, because he's mad as a brush, but has a huge charm to him and knows exactly where he's going because he's worked all around the world and is steeped in whiskey. But Tristan, you hit the nail on the head. The journey is lovely because, even if you're really knowledgeable in whiskey, you'll pick up new notes when you go back to it. And if you're new to whiskey, that kind of sweetness and accessibility on the taste is it's really approachable. We get a lot of people saying the problem with Journey is it's too Moorish. It's just too easy to get through. But yeah,
I love comments like that being framed like it's a negative. Remember, everyone watching this, drink. It's not a trophy to put on your wall.
I think as long as it's the flavour that's Moorish and not the alcohol itself, then it's absolutely fine.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. But no, it's tasty. It's good. Yeah. Cool. Well, fantastic. I don't know. Anything more to say, Cian? You talked a lot about the new stuff that's coming out, which is really exciting. I can't wait to try that. I'm super excited to try Martinique rum cask Irish whiskey.
We'll get you a taste of that for sure, Tristan. That's Caravel, and then the new one is called Trade Winds, which is of those 10-year-olds, it's my favorite. It's just incredible. It's a Trinidad and Tobago spiced rum cask, and it's just outstanding. But yeah, so look, I'm like I said, I missed the comments actually when they were going up, so I hope that people are enjoying Journey.
Yeah, they are indeed. Sam, just coming back to you. Has Boutique been bottling much Irish whiskey at all? Haven't done much with that?
Yeah.
Or malt, yeah.
From the very beginning, yeah, Boutique had unnamed Northern Irish malts that we were very fortunate to source back then, and some of it was stayed in Ireland where it has to stay to mature. So we can't bring it to our facility in Scotland and do the work that Cian's mentioning. Unfortunately, I'd love to maybe speak to Cian about finding a way to do that in Ireland, because it's one of the strangleholds we have on our supplies. We can't put fingerprints. So we're very parallel businesses in that way, I think, Cian, is that we are working with partners and distillers to get the sort of spirits we want to make something of our own. And I think with Irish, that's different than Scotch, or I work a lot with Canadian whiskey or with Australian whiskey. Those we can bring to Scotland and play with. Irish has to stay in Scotland, and we don't have a facility there. So, but yeah, Boutique loves Irish. Irish is a big part of our world whiskey blend, especially what Cian just mentioned, the sort of 8-year-old, younger, single-digit bourbon, 100% bourbon matured Irish grain is a gorgeous base for illustrating stronger flavors on top of. So we love using that. Also, I mean, you can't go wrong with some of the old Northern Irish, like I mentioned. And then a lot of the new stuff. So I've got a bunch of samples on my desk now from a lot of new distillers. So Ireland, most of us, Cian's absolutely right. Jameson is what we think of. But in my whiskey life, I've seen Ireland go from a handful of distilleries to more hands than I have in this house right now. And I've got 5 kids. Not 5 kids, sorry, 3 kids and 5 people. But, I think, and that's a very exciting time for as a nerd like me, someone who loves whiskey and everyone who drinks the stuff. We're only beginning the Irish whiskey journey.
Yeah.
So, like, a couple of things. One is come on over to Ireland, seriously, and we'll put together an itinerary for you and so on. You'll see some amazing whiskeys and distilleries and so on.
Hey Siri, make a note to tell.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. And the second,
send me a calendar invite as well, by the way. So.
Yeah, the second thing I should have said this, Tristan, but on the back of our growth and kind of Sailor Stone being so well received, we're actually buying the land for our own distillery this year, and that's kind of
amazing.
Cool. That's kind of exciting and positive, which is
that
cool.
going to be Limerick area?
Yeah, Limerick, yeah.
Cool, fantastic. Oh well, that's a great note to finish on. It's fantastic to hear that, and I hope that when you come back on in 3 years' time, we'll be talking about your 3-year-old. Well, maybe when we're 3 years old, if you just buy the land.
I'm hoping it doesn't take 3 years to get back on, but absolutely, we'll fill you in completely on the next stage of the journey next time we're talking, for sure.
So we'll have Haven, we'll have the journey, and we'll have the headache or the debt. What will that one be called?
Yeah, sure.
Work in progress.
The bank manager. Yeah. All right. Great. Well, look, guys, thanks so much. It was a lot of fun, and appreciate your time, and appreciate your whiskeys. Appreciate both of you. And thanks everyone for joining in and listening and commenting or taking notes. Appreciate you too. We'll see you next